Hi, my dragons, and welcome to my den. Yes, I'm wearing a Tiffin University hoodie, and I know it's 90 degrees outside, but in my den, it is a very comfortable 61. So anyway, we are on week 2, and so for week 2, we're going to talk about some of the history that has guided us as the United States, as a country, toward violence. I'm trying to look up so I don't get the reflection of my glasses. But anyway, so the United States, yep, we were born in violence, okay? The British colonized the United States, as we all well know, and they weren't very nice to the colonists, tried to impose situations on them that were not fair, such as taxation without representation, some legal proscriptions, like they would pick the juries in cases that colonists were involved in, and then, colonists did not have a jury of their peers. They had a jury of their people who were colonizing them, which really didn't go well, especially if they were accused of crime against the British Empire. So we were born in violence. We had a revolution, which was bloody and terrible. And since then we have been characterized by periods of intense violence, and since that time it has been unrelenting, and it has been especially painful for different cultural groups within our culture, like Native Americans and African Americans and things like that. So it's still with us today, and the legacy of those violent times and those disparities in terms of equal opportunities for different cultural groups is still ongoing, unfortunately. So we're just going to talk about some of the highlights of historical violence in the United States. So criminal and non-criminal violence has permeated our culture. And we live in a culture where we have laws, we have a constitution, we have a lot of different things that enshrine nonviolence. However, in order to overthrow violence and wrongdoings against a group, individuals have to acknowledge that something wrong has been done to them. So they have to have a basic understanding of the law, that this is legal and this is illegal, in order for them to take action. And trying to correct violence through the law is a great thing and an appropriate thing, and there are mechanisms in place for doing that. However, if you don't know the law and you are not willing to put up with the time it takes to fix the law, or the actions it takes to fix the law, it is a long process. The law moves slowly. Then, unfortunately, many groups and many people do resort to violence, and that's when we have to really address that sort of thing. So we have independence, we have the Civil War, we have slavery, we have prohibition, we have labor conflicts, immigration conflicts, crimes against the Native Americans, all of those things that has really become the tapestry of who we are as Americans, and has been an important part of our culture. So violence has been criminal, civil, disorderly, and civil violence. We're going to talk about a little bit more about some of the civil violence that we've seen. And you're really going to get a big part of that when you take psychology of violence and psychology and law, okay? So we have a history of violence. I put some videos in this PowerPoint. So there's links that are embedded in it, and you can just watch them and see what you think of it. Oh, let me go into some housekeeping first. I'm still on quarantine. I did take my COVID-19 test yesterday, as per my doctor's orders, and they told me it will take 4 to 6 days to get a result. So today is Tuesday. I doubt we'll have class on Thursday, unless, I don't know, by some chance they call me by tomorrow night, which is Wednesday, and then I'll know by Thursday. But I think it's safe to assume that I'll still be in quarantine this week, maybe even on Monday, but I'm awaiting that negative results, which keep your fingers crossed that it's negative. So I don't see why not. I'm only having, some very few weird little symptoms, but hard to tell if it's COVID or if it's, allergies or some other thing. Everybody's nervous every time they sneeze. So anyway, on to our stuff. So on the very first slide, there's a link embedded about the history of violence in the United States, and some interesting little things that kind of appear in the United States, like Hamilton and Burr, the Hatfields and the McCoys, and all of those kinds of things for you to look at. So we do have, in the United States, a habit of enshrining or amplifying or glorifying violence, okay? We do this in a lot of different ways, but we certainly do it with myths and lies, the myths of the tough cowboy or the law and order frontier, or, interpersonal violence, organized crime, and things like that. So those myths and those stories sometimes have a kernel of truth in them, but a lot of times are just, part of the culture and are, enlarged over time than compared to what they were actually in life. So that's the reason why you have to have good research and good data and good record keeping about all of these things. Interestingly enough, I think I told you that I am doing some research on COVID with other people in other parts of the world, other professors in other parts of the world. And one thing that historically we have seen during pandemics and epidemics is a rise in violence, rioting, looting, that sort of thing. So some of the things that we're seeing around the world, like uprisings and stuff like that, that people are, reporting from different countries, it's no different than it has been in other times of pandemics. So the pandemic itself gives rise to violent behavior among people. So that's probably a little part of it. But anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there. So we get information about violence from a lot of different places. So I just told you that was a historical and epidemiological history that was unexpected. Wow, it's a pandemic. We didn't just sit around and quarantine. There were some violent outbursts, okay? So we also get stuff from court records, indictments, convictions. All court records are public information. And we do get a lot of stuff on violence and aggression from the public health departments. I know that sounds very strange, but the public health departments are in charge of recording deaths. And I think I went over that in this class, the 4 systems: natural, accidental, suicide, or homicide. So when they record those deaths, it becomes part of our history. So violence and aggression, if someone died according to those measures, then that becomes part of our history. Also, we have spotty information about victims, certain victim groups like Native Americans, people who couldn't read or write, or people who didn't have access to school or access to institutions to record those things. And then you're relying on only the people who killed them to give you an accurate result, which of course they have a vested interest in not doing. Let me give you an example. When my daughter was 4, she's 22 now, came upon a crime scene, an accident. It was a car accident. And it was a driver of a truck who had hit a bicyclist. And the bicyclist wasn't dead. He died on the life flight, the helicopter ride to the hospital. But anyway, so the only person there who could give an account of what happened was the guy who actually hit him. So the guy who actually hit him has a vested interest in not saying, hey, he was in my way, so I ran him over. Not that he did, I'm just saying. So when you rely on a particular source, sometimes there are other things that they're going to either tell the truth or hide, mostly hide. So there are biases of the time, especially when you look at minority populations and the people who were in power at the time or have a vested interest in not recording those things. And with the health department, same thing. They're not recording the deaths to minorities being for pandemics or being for whatever. Sometimes they don't have the same access to those people who are keeping record of that kind of thing. So that's very interesting. Some of our biggest social bandits, Jesse James, Billy the Kid, Bonnie and Clyde, Al Capone. I'm going to show, one of the things that you're going to do for this assignment this week is to watch a movie on Al Capone. So keep in mind the history, and this was done for biography, so it's pretty good. But also, there's a lot of glamour associated with our social bandits that may or may not have been true. So the myth lives on in terms of violence and aggression, okay? So it started with Native Americans, you know. It used to go into class, very first day of class for multicultural issues, and someone would be sitting there, and invariably I would pick on a young lady who would be sitting in the front of the class, and maybe she had her backpack or something like that, and I would just take her backpack and start going through it and go, wow, look what you got, look what you have. And she'd be like, what are you doing? Put my stuff away. And I'd be like, oh, no, you came in, I am taking over your backpack. And she's like, give me my backpack back. And I'm saying, no, I'm just taking it because I have the right to. And of course, you know, it was just a demonstration of how the Native Americans must have felt, you know. Oh, you know, we came here and look what you've got. I'm just going to take it and declare it mine. There, I put a flag up. It's now mine. So yeah, the whole concept of colonization, going someplace, you know, and saying, hey, this is now mine. You guys are savages, so I'm taking it. And taking all your possessions and taking your culture away, depriving you of your culture, your freedom, and everything. That probably came as a huge shock to every culture who was ever colonized, okay? So at first, the conflicts were peaceful, and then, of course, greed set in, and then they became not peaceful. So we have a bad history with that. The United States did not know what to do with, the people who came to the United States did not know what to do with people who wouldn't just give up their life, their possessions, their land. They started thinking that it was, you know, they were just being stubborn or savages or whatever. Of course it belongs to us because we are the chosen people. And I'm not just talking about the United States. This happened everywhere a nation colonized another country. We're the chosen people. We are God's chosen people. Imagine there was a time in the world that the Pope, who felt, of course, you know, they were God's chosen people, divided the world in half between Spain and Portugal. Spain got one half of the world and Portugal got the other half of the world. And yay, there it is. It's yours. Go get it. We are the chosen people, so naturally it's yours. In the United States, we had a policy like that too called Manifest Destiny. So the Pilgrims came, they landed, the British came, and they said, we own this whole land. This is all ours. We claim it for us. We're God's chosen people. And we're going to take it from one end to the other. It's our destiny. It's our manifest destiny. And, of course, that was not met with happiness from the people they were taking it from. So there you go. So one of the things the American government did was they made treaties, and they broke every one. Every single one. They broke them all. So there was this, they set up a climate of mistrust between native groups and, you know, American settlers. This is true everywhere, for every country. I'm not just picking on the United States. It happened in Canada, happened in South America, happened everywhere. So yeah, it's the psychology of the colonizer, okay? So one of the things that we did in the United States was they tried to move the Native Americans to the West, okay? So they tried to move them to the West. They took all the native populations that they could find and they walked them to the West, walked them. And what they did was a lot of people died. Imagine your grandmother and young kids and, you know, walking all the way to the western part of the country. That's called the Trail of Tears. There's only one group of Native Americans that are left from that, and they are the Cherokees in parts of Tennessee and North Carolina. Okay, so that was a shameful thing that we did. I'm going to do part 2 here, so stay tuned.